Hello and welcome to Gundry's Guides, episode 10. Apologies for the delay. It's been a while, I realise. I have, among other things, been moving house. But all sorted now and been back in term time at the university for about 9 weeks now with a whole bunch of very keen new wildlife undergrads and wildlife documentary students. This video is the best bits from 3 sessions at Leighton Moss in October and November. It's a wonderful RSPB reserve just south of the Lake District with some really spectacular species. A lot of this, well, almost all of it was done without a tripod for reasons of weight, so apologies for the slight wobbliness. First, we have the bearded tits, an incredibly charismatic species, and although there's hundreds of thousands in Europe, there's only about 600 pairs in the UK, confined to a few tiny parts of Scotland and only 9 sites in England, only 2 of which are of any considerable size. And Leighton Moss is one of the smaller sites where you can see the species. There's about 30 pairs on the reserve, and in winter they're dependent on grit, which they need to grind up the hard seeds that they feed on at this time of year. And so a few grit trays in a couple of sites in the reserve gives one a great opportunity to see them. As you can see, they're seriously charismatic, beautiful birds. Here, in much less inspiring lighting conditions, we have a grey heron killing and swallowing a small eel. Well, in fact, as you'll see, it swallows it long before it kills it. Nice gruesome moment for you there. Grey herons are reasonably abundant in the UK, but there's only about 13,000 breeding pairs. And in this part of the reserve, you will see herons and cormorants, and if you're lucky, otters feeding on the local fish life. You'll see that after he or she has swallowed the eel, it then drinks some water to kind of wash it down. Next I moved to Lillian's Hide, which is another great site in the reserve, and I had my usual several frustrating hours trying to photograph and film snipe. Now, the common snipe is a small wader with something like a 1 million population in Britain in winter, so why the heck are they so hard to find? One of the reasons is their body is about the size of a cigarette packet. I mean, very, very small. Their camouflage is amazing. And when, as you can see, and when they're not moving, they are basically invisible. They've got this beautiful, beautiful plumage, got some nice red tones on the tail, although that's usually hidden, except during display. As you can see, it's got this crazy long bill, which allows it to feed deep inside the mud, and it feeds on insects, earthworms, other invertebrates, and sometimes vegetation. The males make an amazing drumming sound during the mating season, which is reckoned to sound a bit like the bleat of a sheep. Here you can see one grooming and generally chilling out with a female northern shoveler behind it. She really puts the tiny size of the snipe in context. They're beautiful, beautiful birds. Unless they're being incredibly accommodating, and these are a very small, shy bird, you're going to need quite a lot of magnification. These are shot as usual with the Z9 with effectively 1000mm focal length. And finally, you can see one doing absolutely nothing with a few beautiful teal and a male pintail in the background. The northern pintail is one of Britain's largest ducks, being larger and longer than a mallard, and has a global distribution, although only approximately 27 pairs breed in the UK. Nevertheless, the wintering population in the country can hit 20,000. It is able to feed at deeper depths than other dabbling ducks and can reach down about 30 centimetres. It is named after the beautiful tail feathers that you see on the male during the breeding season, although they are slightly less obvious at this time of year. Next we have a pair of medium-sized dragonflies trying to lay eggs as late in the year as mid-October. There were several pairs doing this, so clearly this isn't outside of their normal behaviour. We're coming towards the end now, and here is probably the only good video I've ever captured of a marsh harrier. These are a large raptor feeding on small birds, small mammals, invertebrates, frogs, anything they can get really, and they prefer to nest in reed beds, presumably because of the security from almost all predators, although they will sometimes nest in arable fields. There are about 600 pairs in the UK now, which is a massive, massive improvement because in 1971, the Warden of Minsmere said, quote, "If you have visited the RSPB Reserve in Suffolk in recent years and seen the 2 or 3 pairs which breed there, you will in fact have been looking at more than half of this country's population of these magnificent raptors." So in other words, there's been about 100-fold increase in the population in the last 50 years. So wonderful, wonderful news. The hen harrier and the Montagu's harrier are in much more dire straits today than the marsh harrier. These birds are often a highlight of visits to reed beds, such as at RSPB Minsmere in Suffolk, and also Leighton Moss, of course, where I was for these trips. Also RSPB Burton Mere on the Wirral. So often, a highlight to many visits to these sites, because unlike the otters and the bitterns, which are other wonderful, large, charismatic reedbed species, these ones are a lot less good at hiding. As you can see, they will quarter the ground repeatedly in search of prey, while trying to minimise the angelic costs. So you can see they will glide for a bit and then flap for a bit and then repeat that. The marsh harrier is also known for a beautiful mating display in the breeding season, when they will drop prey items from one mate to the other while on the wing. Stunning sight to see. This species breeds from as far west as Leighton Moss and other nearby reserves, to as far east as central Mongolia, as far north as the northern shore of the Gulf of Bothnia between Sweden and Finland, and as far south as northern Iran. It has a truly huge global range. And finally, some fairly mediocre footage of otters foraging for eels at Leighton Moss. Otters depend on clean water with high abundances of prey, so the health of British rivers is absolutely essential for the health of the otter population. Bye for now. Thanks for listening and have a good week.